right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're excited to have another InterSystems Developer Community webinar. Today, we're going to have Ron Sweeney and Dan McCracken talk about GitOps using the InterSystems Kubernetes operator. I am Dean Andrews. I'm head of developer relations here at InterSystems. I will take just a couple of minutes to tell you a little about InterSystems. We are here with, we are a global technology company and we empower innovations with developers. We are headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have offices all over the world. Our customers and partners work primarily in the industries of healthcare, financial services, and supply chain, but we have people innovating on InterSystems technology across many industries. This is just a brief snapshot of InterSystems customer base and impact in healthcare. Our Iris data platform is the world's most popular health data platform. We have customers in over 80 countries. Over 1 billion patient records daily are managed on InterSystems technology, about 2/3 of the patient records in the United States. And we are considered a global leader by industry analysts in the areas of data management, data interoperability, and data analytics. This is just an illustration of our customer base. It is not at all a complete list, but it just illustrates that we work across the spectrum in healthcare and again, also in financial services and supply chain logistics. But in healthcare, we work with healthcare provider companies, insurance companies, med tech, life sciences, medical device companies, solution partners like Epic and 3M, and also with regional government and even national government entities like the Veterans Administration and the National Health Service in the UK. We have a very vibrant developer community at InterSystems, over 15,000 developers around the world. We have many useful assets that developers can take advantage of, including a developer community forum that has programming contests, active Q&A, and many other attributes to it. We have an open source app gallery with over 800 applications we call Open Exchange. We have a feedback portal where you can put in your own product ideas and feedback on our technology. And we have a developer advocate hub that has prizes and swag and many other things. We have all of these assets, but you can reach all of them through the one portal at developer.intersystems.com. Here's a QR code. We consider it a one-stop shop for developers to innovate on our technology. I will stop there. Thank you again for joining, and I will pass it over to Ron and Dan.
All right, cool. All right, let's get started. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself first. That's okay?
Okay, absolutely. Good morning. My name is Dan McCracken, COO of Devs Operative. We're a cloud-native Kubernetes, site reliability, software development shop, and certified Kubernetes service provider located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And today, I've been helping Ron a lot with Argo CD, and we're going to get into that and talk about some GitOps today.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I'm Ron Sweeney, and I'm actually enrolled in the InterSystems startup program through Celestinus, and I'm building something. I've built a lot of things on InterSystems technologies for other folks, and I've taken it upon myself this year to build something that I kind of believe in, and asked Dan for some help. And really excited as to what we came up with on this journey. Finally have a deployment model we can do. As you can see here, this is Dan's career, and this is mine, which is kind of a tire fire at the moment. But on the grind with a startup, day job too. And we want to kind of tell you a little bit about the convergence of a couple of things that was really eye-opening during this process. And Dan certainly helped out with that. The devs operative team. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, truth be told, Dan and I have worked together before, a long time ago. I guess it was a long time ago, about a decade ago, I guess. Yeah. So we had to catch up. And when we were doing some catching up, we were kind of sitting around talking a bunch of acronyms, blah, 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 blah. For some reason, I'm eating a bowl of peanut butter and Dan's got a chocolate bar. But we caught up after a while. And, after we got done talking about things, Dan and I gave each other like this really awkward bro hug. And we kind of figured some things out in our conversations that, the two things that we were working on, we had some synergies. And these two things are the convergence that I'm really excited about, that not only enabled my startup because it's a really hard deployment model, but also kind of like the lights went on from things I've been working on in the past 2 years, and it kind of fixes a lot. So those two things together. If you don't get the parody, there was a commercial way back in the 80s about when ET was launched. I could drop this link in there, but it was the synergy on two worlds collide and Reese's peanut butter cups were born. That didn't happen for real, but this did. I called Dan. I go, look, man, I've got this thing, but I don't know quite how to explain it to people, and I'm getting better at it as time goes. But the reason was because I didn't know how to put it all together. I didn't know how to glue it all together. And what I had was a bunch of pile of charts and some containers and some cloud resources, a pile of scripts. It kind of just looked all moz posh together. So I called Dan, right? And Dan, you want to kind of chime in as to what he said, but what you said was,
yep, we're going to build an app. We're going to build an app of apps. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that was intriguing and a very good segue. So brought Dan on board and we went to work. And two industry terms that are new to me within the last 3 months, actually. I've worked with Git a lot, and I work with IKO, just playing with it, but not professionally yet. And I really like the idea of GitOps because nowadays you can do so much just from a source control repository, and this is definitely it. But Dan, can you give us all a little, what your experience has been in supporting some of these workloads?
Yeah, having the traditional model of, hey, I'm a developer, I've got a bunch of Helm charts that Ron emailed me, and now I have to do Helm commands and Docker commands, and eventually I can get my workload to run in Kubernetes. And that's kind of how we started talking. You're like, hey, I've got this stuff running in Kubernetes, and I looked at it and said, oh, that's great, that's wonderful. That sounds awful. I'm glad that you called me. I can definitely help with this. And that's when we started to talk about Argo, or one of our standard practices at Devs Operative is to create a cluster. And you were already using GKE. We'll talk about that later, but create a cluster, install Argo CD, and Argo CD is your application management plane. You do not need to have Helm on your machine unless you want to do development, which obviously you do. And that started to, like you said, really synergize and solve a lot of the problems that you had to deal with as a startup. You've got to deal with like 1,000 things, and Helm on your machine shouldn't be one of them necessarily. Hopefully that's the last thing. So, pros, just to look at the slide, GitOps, absolutely. We're committing configuration to source control. We have audit logs, we have security, we have control, we have change control. There's an idea, especially in a startup. It's amazing. With pull requests, you can start to control environments. We can maintain different environments and keep track of what version of an application is deployed where. And we'll leverage Argo, and obviously we'll take a look at that later. It allows us to do all of these things through Git and using that as our persistence layer. And then Kubernetes takes care of the rest, like we'll see. So it's great.
Yeah, so like that whole Helm thing was exactly the problem I was having, right? Like I gave you I've got a cluster, I need 2 Helm commands and I'm good. So that's kind of where we're at. Then on the other side of the fence, one of those Helm commands, and one of the bullet points seems to have disappeared here, but the Kubernetes operator was in play. You know, it was one of those, I think, 2 or 3 help commands I told you to run so I can get something going, right?
Yep.
And you know, after I started looking into IKO, I was, you know, I was kind of blown away because these two things together, like I said, really, really plus the thing I was building became ridiculously simple. I mean, it is so simple at the end of the day, and it's probably one of the last slides if we ever get to it. But you know, IKO is it really shines in things like you know, you get things that, you know, take you a while, like TLS and SSL between, like, you know, if you're doing mirroring or just with your web gateways and stuff, and you know, like the whole common password for all my iris fingers, you know, is amazing. Then I started looking into the topologies of requests. And this is an excellent starting point for me. And honestly, I don't like use a lot of the bells and whistles. Everything that, you know, I built could, you know, run in a pipeline. So there are a lot of features of IKO that I wanted. And now I can manage IKO through Git, right? And so the application is now married to the infrastructure in a way that I've never seen before, just because those application objects are now in the cluster. So IKO is free. I think nobody really yelled at me when I used it, so we'll see. But it's also probably the future. If not, I'm gonna probably be. And this slide is awesome because I did it. But Dan, let's talk about this, right? Because there's some important arrows in here. So I drew this and I showed it to whatever that's called. I gimped it, and the arrows were wrong. So can you, like, the one thing that's super important here to understand, I think, and I'm going to say this and you correct me, is that that Kubernetes is actually polling through Argo, the GitLab repository, a particular branch and just applying them, right? Like,
yes.
So
right.
polling's the word. Yeah.
Yep. Right. We do not have like a GitHub action or CI/CD doing a push. You know, Jenkins isn't click a deploy button in Jenkins. That's the past.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we used to do 10 years ago. Argo is a poll. It's a polling mechanism. And so it reaches out into the Git repo, as you can see in the center here. It reaches out and checks for differences in state, and then does its management, hands that to Kubernetes, and then Kubernetes does its magic of, you know, making state happen in the way that you've asked it to. So
yeah, really cool. I love the direction of the arrows on this thing, right? Like, to me, it's like now it's just a robot, right? It's not somebody, like you said, like hitting a button or whatever. So yeah, that kind of shows what we're putting together here. And we do have to get to a starting point. You know, there's 8 here. They're not a big deal. They really aren't. What we'll do is, right now, we want to kind of get a little bit more interactive with this and kind of speed things up. So install Kubernetes, right? Like, I've got it scripted. Dan's got it in Terraform. You know, or you can just click the clown suit to death to get yourself one, but you're going to need a cluster. And why is that low on resource? Oh, it's underutilized. So let's check that, right? So I'm going to drive here, Dan, and this is our cluster, right? This is all the pods in our clusters. This is all of our namespaces so far. We're looking good on CPU. I think we added some nodes to this guy, right? We got 5 of them. 3 of them are beefy and 2 of them are not. And the 2 of them that are, looks like it switched the stuff around. So the dream is realized for me. So I think we're at a point where we've got a Kubernetes cluster, and then I hope this isn't clunky when I stop sharing. Or do you want me to just drive?
You can drive.
I don't know. Well, I want you to drive Argo, right?
Yeah, I'm prepared to do that.
Yeah, I want you to drive. So I'm going to stop sharing, go your way.
Okay.
It's not, oh, there it goes. Can you just take it because it's not stopping?
Good.
Yep, I see ya. Cool.
All right. So what we've done here is no smoke and mirrors. Hopefully this is not too small of text, but we're just doing a port forward to pull up the Argo dashboard from this Kubernetes cluster that we've kind of skipped a step around, but we've installed Argo CD on our cluster with a simple Helm install.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is do a port forward so that we can gain some access to the amazing dashboard here. And right now there's nothing in it. We have not done anything yet.
Okay, and then the next step was want to show the GitHub repository that we provisioned for this today, right?
Yep.
And we have a feature branch. So if you want to flip it to the feature branch, you can tell because you'll see that cool, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So we're there. Can you show that we've connected Argo to our Git repository?
Yes, one of the steps is telling Argo about the repositories, whether it's a Helm remote or if it's a mono Git repo like we're implementing here. You have to give it, if it's secured, like ours is super secure. You have to put in username and password, connect it up, and here it is. We're using this bit2 GitOps IKO.git. That's what we're taking a look at here.
So we're pulling a particular branch, right?
Argo has the ability to read this repo. That's all we've done so far.
That's it. All right, cool.
Correct. Yep.
All right. And we do have an opinionated folder structure in the Git repo that you'll probably see here in a minute because I'm going to do some things. So we've connected it. Did we create the ISC namespace? Can you check in K9 or whatever you do to see your namespaces?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so we created the ISC namespace. The next thing we have to do now, if you read the docs for IKO, our next step is IKO, or at least getting ready for it. If you read the docs for IKO, it's going to tell you to, hey, create a namespace, create a secret, and then install this Helm chart. Now, we want to get rid of that Helm business. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the IKO operator under the control of Argo. So we've done that. If you want to go ahead and show the file system where we've done that and checked it in.
Yes, so we have the Helm chart itself for the Iris operator committed, that's down here, committed to our mono repo. So this is kind of where we get opinionated. There's a million ways you can implement GitOps. We're doing it this way, where we have a Helm chart committed to code. We could read from a remote repo, but we have it committed to code. Ron pulled it down and kind of unfurled it here. And we'll be referencing this source code as the Helm chart for the IKO operator. And here there's a version and values and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, so that Helm chart is now under control of Argo, and we don't have to install it manually.
Right.
All right, so what else is on the list? We got it in the feature branch, and then did we configure the values.yaml to point inside Argo to point to a particular, or the values pointing to a particular branch? That's what we have to show that.
Once we are ready to deploy our app of apps, the app of apps itself, like the Argo CRD, like it's the main object that Argo wants to talk. You get to tell it what revision of your Git repo, or if it's a tag, or if it's a branch, or if it's a specific SHA that you want to pin to. Right now, since we did test the live demo, we have a wonderful live demo.
Yeah,
that's how Ron rolls, and here we are. So we're going to change this.
So yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
what are you going to do? You're going to change that to main there? Or?
Yes, I think so, because we want to do pull requests, right?
Yeah, do that. So like the idea here is everything's controlled by Git. So we're going to bore you a little bit with a bunch of Git commands and probably looking at VS Code, but that is the point. So, but there will be some things to look at that are pretty cool once we get to a point right here and Argo does its thing. So we're still configuring Argo, right, Dan? So we're going to commit this, and then
we are going to merge our feature branch to main, because that's, we're ready. We're done with development. We have our Helm charts committed. We have our applications, our Argo applications ready to go. There was some fun that happens. We're not going to go through the development process of those. It's very simple. But those are ready, and we can do a pull request if I can remember. Oh, okay. Yeah. Of course, it wants to just be very easy.
Is this the seed operation?
What? Right now, that's going to be the next thing we do. So we're going to get all of our source code, the best we know. It's ready to be tested, and we're going to test it against the main branch because we've tested it on our feature. We're going to go mainline. It's ready to go. Here's our PR. I'm going to merge it without run because live demo. And we now have, we didn't test this part. So, I mean, welcome. Okay. So we have main, and main has
Yep.
all of our code. Yes.
All right.
And go ahead.
Is Argo still blank?
We have not
Like,
told Argo anything yet. Correct.
all right.
So the next thing we do is we're going to take our app of apps, and it's the one command you do have to do. You have to tell the cluster what state you want it to have. It's the one command you have to run. And what we will do is make sure that I'm pulled down to main. And here's all our changes that we just did.
Yeah.
And we're going to kubectl apply Argo CD app of apps cluster seed. We have a cluster seed called GitOps IKO, and that seed is the thing that tells Argo all of the applications that we want to deploy. And we'll just take a quick look at it because it's kind of important. We tell it to take everything from this path in our repository on the branch main, which is a Helm chart. So we've actually created a very simple Helm chart with 2 manifests that happen to be Argo objects, they happen to be Argo applications. And we say, monitor this Helm chart and deploy anything in there. And our opinionated way of managing the app is that these shall only probably be Argo application objects. So if Ron wants to install Spark, he's going to come here, create a new Argo application. And since we've already seeded it and kind of told it, hey, deploy everything, deploy all the things from this chart, things will just start to go.
That's important. So right now, the operator is now an Argo app, right?
Yes, that is this, what we're looking at here. This Argo app, I know, so we're kind of getting Argo inception, which has been a nice journey that, you know, Ron and I have been going down the last 3 months, talking about this. It's kind of inception, but there's a chart and it's called the app of apps. And then these apps reference the actual stuff that runs. So we're going to move out of the realm of Argo manifests or Argo tooling into, these are just the charts. These are InterSystems charts or Bitnami charts or whatever.
Yep. All right, let's do it.
I think we can do that. So I'm going to kubectl apply this guy here. And don't go so fast. Okay, cool. Okay.
Here goes.
And since we have this configured to be go Argo, hands off, everything is kind of auto applying itself. These are all settings that you can tweak, but it's a much better demo. And it's just like, oh, it's automated. So we've applied one thing. This is our app of apps. The app of apps had that IKO. It also had another manifest that we'll talk about in a second, and you can see everything's green. So, you know, it was perfect. You know, that's how
that was amazing. Well done, sir. It's pretty great. So there is, if you want a graphical view of an operator, right? Is that what I can't see it because that's my phone, but this is the IKO one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if you're interested in all of the work that went into IKO, and if you will see this listing inside of the folders for sure in the help chart, but this is a little cooler look at it and get a little more appreciation for what it's doing. So that is our setup where we got IKO and we can start to go to work, right?
Yes.
Most of our supporting infrastructures in there. We've got our secrets for pulling containers from InterSystems. So that's it. Do you want me to share again?
I can show KNS and kind of prove it.
Yeah, please do. Yep.
We've got the operators running in namespace ISC in our cluster, and it's only been running for this thing's taking up my screen because I have to make this bigger. It's only been running for 92 seconds. So they're, show my hand.
All right.
And,
so it's
it has logs. It's real.
It's doing its
Why?
thing. It went out and pulled the container. Can you see the
Yep.
pods that are in that guy?
Yes. Well, here's
Uh,
the pod, and
yeah.
here's the container running this version of Iris
I
operator.
thought,
Yep.
how many containers are in there? 2 or just 1?
This one's just one.
Okay.
The operator is just one. I think the clusters, the data pods have multiple. So yes, you can take over.
All right. So we got a question out there, Dan. Yeah, if Chris, do you want to speak in the observability of the actual IKO operator, or observability that, you know, some of the InterSystems containers will? I mean, sure, we've got stuff on the Kubernetes side. I don't know about the observability of Argo itself, but then there's also the SAM container. Yeah.
Sort of
Go ahead.
more end-to-end observability, like, you know, and maybe you can speak to this towards the end of the session, you know. So you got all this running, and, you know, what are the test points? How do you pull all that telemetry in? You know, how do you tell things are operating well, and how do you tell when they're not?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. IKO, it definitely has some hooks into SAM, and I think just about everything exports Prometheus metrics all the way up and down the stack. So we can definitely show some of that, I think, Dan. I know I can show it in maybe the PID2 app where you enable it at least. But yeah, Chris, we'll see if we can touch on that. And debugging for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And there are supported plugins that are part of Argo that you can light up to do additional notifications. If you want Argo telemetry, or if you want Argo statuses, some people choose to go that route. It's just whatever you normally use for managing Kubernetes. Like, right, you can use Prometheus, you could use Prometheus Grafana, you could use Elk. We use the Google stuff, you know, just kind of tap into that and we get all the logs. But
yeah, that's the old stack driver stuff, right? But you're right, Chris.
Sure.
Like, now we've added a layer. We're going to need to make sure we keep an eye on that layer,
yep,
in itself. But all right, so I'm gonna
there you go.
I'm gonna take over. And okay, we're dunsies with setup. So we did that. We got the chart done. We added a namespace. We kind of took a peek at the repo, and let's do some GitOpsy stuff. So Dan, I want you to be my co-pilot on this. Be my spotter. So
Okay.
what was add more resources? So yeah, let's say we have we just want to add more disk. Don't we have to add, let's do this one first. Can we do the subscription one where we add the feature flag and have you speak to that? I might have
That's the best one to demo. Yeah,
it really is the best. So do you want me to drive? Because that's a
Yep.
really silly, that
Absolutely.
is a really, really silly. Let me get out to that. I didn't have this one loaded. And it was, hang on, let me get a shell. And all right, so
make sure you pull
I
name.
pulled it. I pulled it, and I got to switch to it. Yeah.
Generally.
Okay, cool. And then check out main, git pull, be a citizen here. See if I can make this the thing we're looking at. Clear it. All right. So what do I do? So I remember I asked you that, hey, can this thing be, can I light up features? Because my app has literally 2 InterSystems thingers in it and a Spark thinger, right? So one of them's a community thing, which is what we're probably going to show right here. And the other one is a commercial InterSystems product that is an inference endpoint. So where would I go to implement what I asked you to do? I think it was a top level thing in.
We will go to the Argo CD folder. Yep.
App of apps, charts,
Values.
So here it is. So PID2 enabled. Let's kind of look for that in the whole repo. Cheat code and see where it's mentioned at least. So it's actually in my PID2 application. It's what is this? Okay, so I
That's,
got to change it in three places. Oh no, I changed it in one, right? And then it should
That's
just
right.
populate everything. Okay, so if I change it in my values.yaml, which is a Helm chart thingy, to true, right? Let me. So I do that, and then I say true. Yeah, true is a string.
Yep.
If I like
Let's take a
that.
look at that second file where it says if values add-ons.
Okay.
Yep. So this is kind of just, this is a Helm chart work center. So you're developing a Helm chart. Something that's super common is putting an expression there. And all we're doing is saying, if PID2 enabled is true, then render this manifest as part of the app of apps chart. So right now, the app of apps doesn't, it runs a Helm template in the background for those of us that do Helm work. It's running Helm template, and before Ron makes this change, nothing comes up in terms of this application code here coming out. Once we set that value to true, if somebody bought it or whatever, it's kind of the use case. Hey, somebody bought this thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Change your value to true now, and
Yeah.
Argo will now see this application and get access to it.
Can this thing be anywhere in this YAML?
Yes.
Or does it have to be top to bottom? A reason I'm asking is because, because I was going to ask you if I could have a different storage class, because I was in the mindset of,
yes,
I want a branch for dev, I want one for test, and I want one for prod, but I don't want to make the cloud people rich, right? So I want my dev stuff to be on microcates, right? Or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I want to have an if conditional for the storage classes, because not all of them exist in all the different ones, right? So I have like Maya store for microcates, and all the the AWS ones, and then forward. So you like it on top, but it can definitely be somewhere in the middle here.
You can add Helm values anywhere you want in a Helm chart. So absolutely. And
Awesome.
You're talking about managing a cluster and having that property propagate down through the app of apps. That's absolutely a thing. Argo supports that. It's also just using basic Helm values and parameters that will pass all the way in. Just gets more complicated, the more layers you add, but you can totally do it. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna commit my change.
Yep.
And I'm gonna publish the branch. Can we switch over to you? Not to get clunky here, but you've got everything loaded.
Yep.
And accept the pull request in one tab, and then see how fast you can flip to the other to see if that Iris application was enabled.
Okay. Did you already create the PR?
Oh no, nope. I just pushed it.
Got it. So we can just take a look at your change. So I see that your change was PID2 enabled from false to true.
It's a big one. Yep.
It's huge. It's actually, that's a super important change. So we'd want this under change control. Make sure we ask our manager if we could do this or whatever. Okay, and that is merged. And we'll see if this goes. I won't touch anything. There is a way that we can kind of, since we're in a live demo, we could tell Argo, hey, go check. Go check for changes with these syncs and refreshes. It'd be cool if it just happened. But I'm not very patient. So we will try this.
Oh, so the thing you refresh is actually the app of apps.
Absolutely.
Right? Yep. Because it's the thing that's pointed to the Git repository.
That's so cool. It just kind of came up as syncing. It's going to work on it. Hopefully. What did we do? This should be good. Please. It says it's there.
Let me check it
Let's
in the
check.
cluster to see if it made it. Yeah.
Add-ons PID2 enabled, true. We might be overriding it. We are. I'm going to do one more pull request because we are using I was showing Ron lots of different ways that we could manage this this bit that we want to flip. One of the ways is through Helm values here. There's another place inside the app of apps, which is probably the best place to do it. Live demo, and we will change it here. So this, we can actually look, this is a good excuse to look in Argo. And we can see that in Argo, it's actually showing us, here's an Argo demo. It's showing us that add-ons PID2 enabled is overridden and set to false. And it's actually saying the original value is true, if you can see that text. Because your commit worked, it's trying to do true, but our app of apps, which has the winning,
oh, I see,
the winning bid, is doing that. So very, 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 very quickly. It's not that big a deal. We want the cluster seed. And everybody watching my Vim skills goes crazy because I did a DW. Very proud of that. Enable PID2. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna do the bad thing, Ron, and I'm just gonna commit to main. Okay, because I can. Okay. So we're just gonna commit that to main. Don't ever do that. That's the only time I've ever done that in a collaborative repo.
There it goes. I see something happening. Like I can see the operator changing state too.
Okay. Please. It wants to go. It's just not refreshed yet. So give it a second. Okay, fixing false to true, enable PID2. We can see that Argo does know about our change that is in GitHub. It's just that this is a live demo, and really you're not supposed to care to the exact second. You know, we're not supposed to be clicking a deploy button in this methodology. So a lot of times that's been part of the conversation where it's like, why doesn't it go? It's like, well, be patient, please.
Okay, so now I should be seeing.
I mean, it should be. So we see the sync.
Pods.
No, it's not. It says that it's here. Let's check this. We can look at our Argo applications and see what's actually been committed here. And it's still set to false, which we can kind of tell because our bit here hasn't synchronized it, but please do it. Just I don't know why it doesn't want to do it at the moment. Mainly probably because you're watching. But to override things to make the demo go, we will force it. Yay. So we now
There it
see,
goes. Yep.
we now
I
see
it.
that we have our other cluster. And we come back out here, we see this guy here is PID2 Iris.
Which is an Iris cluster object, which is essentially IKO, which is under the hood a stateful set, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Uh-oh, it's still doing its thing. It looks like it's pending.
But it did pick up our config maps and it deployed an Iris cluster object. So that's something that we didn't really talk about yet, but I don't know if that's something you want to go into or people are familiar with that.
Yeah, I'll see where we're at. What do we got as far as time? We got 15 minutes. Yikes. Yeah, definitely not enough time to show the power of this thing, but
So there, this is it's all deploying. You know, what we were waiting for there, not waiting, but what was happening, again, you're not supposed to watch it.
yeah.
And it's not, you know, football or whatever. The Iris operator was taking a look at this CRD that we deployed from that chart, and it was monitoring Kubernetes events, and it was doing its operator thing, figuring out what it should do with that object, what the parameters were, and here's all the PVs that it generated. That operator does a lot of work, and
Yeah, it does.
It's nice, absolutely.
Okay, could you flip over to K9 and see the
Yes.
initialization of PID2 Iris cluster? My assumption is where we're at right now is it's pulled the container from ISC and it's just waiting to start. So if you go in and describe that guy, right?
That's what I was doing. There we go. It is looking for your Iris key PID2 key secret. So this is just
optional.
normal. This was our, yeah.
Well, it's not found. So we didn't put the secret in there. I didn't think we needed a key for community.
That's what it's looking for. No, it's not in there.
Okay.
But that's just normal Kubernetes stuff. Again, it's part of the prereqs that, you know, managing secrets in Argo, I'll add one piece of commentary too, because we don't have time. You can do it. And managing secrets in Kubernetes, it's really hard. It's really hard to do. Call me. Call me, we can talk about different strategies for that. And they all cost varying different amounts of money.
Okay, so let me try to add this thing. Do you want to take over control of the deck really quick? I'm going to try to add this secret.
Sure. Okay. You want me to show
Get to a lot of that. Yeah, get rid of that. So go to the right, just keep going. We were going to add some disk space, we ran out of time. Yeah, one thing that you know, it was really apparent is that if you look in the documentation for IKO, it'll say, all right, here's an example of all the configuration flags you can do without showing like the default values and stuff. And it was really helpful when we were going around this to kind of work backwards, that we got the simple example, which is like a 4-line YAML file, which blew out the entire cluster. You know, there was a tiny one, but then we were able to describe it, drop it to disk and check it in to GitHub. And it was like overriding that thing. So instead of like, you know, you can let some of the magic happen, but you can root around the system if you want to make changes and then check in those particular changes to your Helm chart or your Iris cluster. That was one of the things we did. There's a hack too. I don't know if you can show it, but you know, you can get all the default values for the Helm charts. What I'm learning on this is it's very important to do this. So if you've got something that's up in Bitnami, because my solution uses Spark and it flips a bit and I'm pulling latest, the values the values actually change from release to release, and you kind of need to keep an eye on that. So I'm kind of one of those people that if it works, I lock it to a branch or whatever, to a particular revision. But that's something you have to kind of keep an eye on. Package manager is really great here because you can, in your pod spec, you can just add a couple of lines to get a shell in Iris, and instead of managing a bunch of code, we've married the infrastructure to Kubernetes, to GitHub, or to a Git repository. I'd like to keep the Iris code that we have in there as well, but it would be great if it was managed outside of that, so you can use the package manager to. All you do in Kubernetes is you register IPM with your key, which is a secret, and then your next one is do an IPM ZPM install, and you've got the software that you need to drive it. So for me, Dean, if you're listening, and Evgeny, if he's out there and ever hears this, like, I would like to see our marketplace, and where we have all of our apps and our ecosystem grow to have actually Helm charts in it, and that call packages instead of like right now we pull a lot of containers so people can quickly iterate on these solutions. Would be great if they were in a Helm chart, because that's just as fast. So yeah, that's about it with that. The manual is super great. Even it was like I just loaded it and kept going. Yeah, you want to keep going? Yeah, we did that. So go down, just kind of get through this, maybe get some questions answered as we ran out of time. Yeah, that's what we were explaining. And what's next? I forgot. Oh yeah, so there is a utility that's in the container that's just as good as a command. I really like the fact that I can set this hash up, put it into common.cpf, and everything that I have has the same Iris password in it, which is super cool. That's not really a hack. It's in the docs, but it's located outside of IKO. It's somewhere else. So if you're looking for it, it's in like the container documentation. Yeah, Dan, let's keep going. I didn't really finish this, but there are 12 tasks I wanted to get to, which is kind of what Chris was asking for, to be able to exec into the pod, but we never got the pod working. So I gotta do that first. Let me see if I can find that code. But are there any questions?
There is a question in the chat. Can you speak to observability and debugging?
I think we already handled that one. Any new questions?
We just did some debugging live. Observability, maybe we can show the GKE console. Maybe you can speak to maybe some of those plugins that you saw for Argo, because I think what Chris might have been going after was that we added a layer of complexity with Argo. It's just another thing to monitor.
Yep, can do that. I can find it. Where is it? So these are just the Argo CD docs, because that is what we are using. We're using community vanilla Argo. Notification. So we can set up different notifications from Argo itself. When you get to the point where, hey, I want Argo to be telling me it's what it thinks the health of my application is. Like I said, it's another layer that you can use. All of the normal Kubernetes telemetry that you're used to using, the normal notifications, is a pod ready, that kind of stuff. That all still applies, and you can kind of take Argo's opinion as well. Argo will tell you when things drift out of state, and that's kind of nice to know. So like what I did in this demo, Argo's going to know if it doesn't agree that the state of the cluster matches the state of the desired state that's in Git. And then it could alert you of those things too. So it's another security blanket, kind of lets you know you are the master of your domain. But here's some triggers for being notified of those types of things. It's in here.
Okay, I can't find a license file, so not one that would be legal for right now. So I think we're gonna have to let that one ride.
Okay.
Some things that I wanted to tackle as the operator is very good at, that I wanted to kind of tackle in a vacuum, would be mirroring. It's made mirroring from 50 feet out and not having to implement it. Very simple. Once you do it once, it's kind of just works. Something that's really, really awesome about can you go into, we don't have any running states, but the naming conventions that were used with IKO are super cool because they're predictable. So you can what you can do is, in some of your configurations where you need mirroring setup, you can actually leave half of the mirror off, and leave the name, because that if you're going to add a data node to a particular cluster, what the name of it's going to be. So you can kind of set that up ahead of time and then have, declare, put in a branch to actually add a mirror later, which is super cool. The other powerful thing is all the SSL certs you kind of get for free. So if you've ever been one that has been, tasked with checking that box if everything is secure between the clusters, between the arbiter, between all of that, that's certainly a time saver, and where IKO certainly pays for itself. I think we had a question, but I couldn't see it.
So the question is, have you tried using Longhorn instead of mirroring?
I think that has been tried by InterSystems, actually. I have not personally tried it. I don't know I know it was tried. I had seen some things going on back and forth internally with that, and I don't know what the challenges were with Longhorn, but it has successfully been used with the IKO operator. But I personally have not done it. I mean, to me, it's just a storage class, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we got 6 minutes.
Okay, guys, do you have any other questions to our speakers?
This did synchronize, by the way. It just takes
It just takes a while.
it takes a second. Yeah. Good sense you watch.
Yeah. So hey, thanks, Dan, for all your help and getting me unlocked. The thing that's mind-opening to me is that the AWS Marketplace has a channel and entitlement for some of their offers that is Helm chart related, and it kind of saved my bacon. I still haven't figured out how, there's this chicken and the egg problem with Argo, right? The starting point moves down a little bit, but yeah, thanks for your help, because that enables me to sell something that is complex. So yeah, thanks for attending, everybody. I think we're all done, and thanks for hosting this, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep, so thank you guys for such a great presentation, Dan, Ron. It was really great to have you today. The recording of the webinar will be available on developer community YouTube, so stay tuned for the updates, and thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.